Whoa, this is ominous. Okay, are we in Code Red right now? Are things getting that intense at Egghead that we had to go to Code Red? Barry, seal all the doors and prepare the trebuchets. I don't know if we're gonna make it through the night. For everybody that's, for our blind viewers, or those of you that are listening to this in podcast format, my room is lit up very red right now, so there you go with that. By the way, I don't bring this up enough, but every single video I make on this channel is available as an audio-only, a podcast format over on my Spotify. I have links below. I never bring that up, but in case you ever want to listen to this on a long drive or, you know, falling asleep at night, because I know people do that. Like, man, Teching, I just love queuing you up on Spotify and going to bed. I'm like, all right, to each their own. All right, okay. So anyway, yeah, things are getting pretty intense in One Piece right now. And which faction would you say is winning at Egghead? Because where I stand right now, where I'm looking at everything and all the moving pieces at Egghead, I honestly got to say the Marines have the upper hand here, and I don't even think it's that close. I don't think it's like a 50-50 split where, like, maybe the Straw Hats, but the Marines. No, I think it's like a solid, like, 70% the Marines kind of have this on lockdown right now, because it's like everything that you can see, like they have Kizaru there as an admiral. We saw him dealing with Luffy in the last chapter without really much effort. We saw him in just the terrifying nature of his Devil Fruit, where it's like, okay, I have to go eliminate Vegapunk. Oh, Luffy's trying to attack me. All right, I'll just generate like 30 clones to go deal with him while I zip back to the lab really quick. And it worked, okay? Vegapunk left before Kizaru returned, but Kizaru could have easily just like distracted Luffy long enough, zipped back to the lab, and if Vegapunk and Atlas had not left to go down to the lower stratum, then Kizaru might have just, you know, just shot Vegapunk and called it a day. So Luffy is able to keep up with Kizaru, but it really seems like just barely. Kizaru sees, you know, Vegapunk leaving, and he's like, oh, there he is. He fires a laser. Luffy, gear fifth, has to like jump in and like, no! You know, like absorb the laser and eat it, and I'm sure Luffy's gonna take some damage from that. He'll be okay. But it seems like, you know, Kizaru dealing with him, just the speed nature and the ability to make clones and holograms of him. And also, like, they weren't just holograms in the sense that they were a distraction and nothing more. Each one of those clones summoned a light sword, and one of them was able to slice Luffy with the sword. He just got like a scratch on his face. But it seems like the speed alone is causing trouble. So that's just Kizaru. That's just one guy that's managing to keep Luffy on his toes, all right, and zipping around really fast, and Luffy can't really keep up with him, okay? And then down below, we have all the Vice Admirals. Like, you have to understand just the absolute juggernaut that the Marines sent to Egghead. Like, they did not, I love this writing, I really do, because this happens a lot in fiction, you know? It's like, you know, we're the head of a military organization or some kind of government or some kind of empire, and there's a threat that needs dealt with. Okay, we're gonna send 10 people to deal with it. You know, no, this is something that really does feel like a large-scale military incursion and, like, siege. Something from, like, our world, okay? This really does seem that, like, Oda sat down and really thought about this. Like, okay, the Marines want Vegapunk dead, or rather, the government, the higher-ups want Vegapunk dead. They want the power plant, and they want York so that they can produce, you know, more stuff for the mother frame and stuff like that. It's like, oh, okay, cool. So they're gonna go and attack Egghead. And it's like, we're gonna send, first of all, as just like a expeditionary force, we're gonna send the Cypher Pole, and they go from like 5, 7, 8 all the way up, and then like, okay, we're gonna send an elite strike team of Cypher Pole 0 with Rob Lucci, Stussy, Kaku, and a bunch of government agents. And then when they don't hear back from them, they send like everybody, like 100 Marine battleships, all these Vice Admirals, an Admiral, one of the Gorosei himself is going. And you know, and it took me a while to realize this, but the reason why St. J. Garcia Saturn went wasn't just to observe the operation. It wasn't just to like, I want to see Vegapunk. I want to speak with Vegapunk one more time before he dies. That wasn't the reason. The reason was they were attacking Egghead. They know is a heavily fortified space-age future island, and they got robots and everything like that. They got a whole army of pacifistas, and it's like, listen, plus the Seraphim, and it's like, listen, I'm sure the Marines will be able to deal with most of this because they're trained. We have all these Vice Admirals. We have Kizaru with us. But if push comes to shove and things really get bad, I have to be there as insurance, because St. J. Garcia knows that the highest authority for the Seraphim and for the Pacifista 3, anything that has the hierarchy, the command ship, is the Gorosei. So it's like, Gorosei don't leave the room of authority in Marie-Joie very often, but it's like, I have to be there, because in case this whole thing goes just like completely bonkers, and the Straw Hats manage to beat Kizaru, and they manage to get all of the Pacifistas and Seraphim on their side, I can be there to, flip the table. I can be there to be the one that can definitively control all of the robots on this island. All right, that's why St. J. Garcia Saturn's there. So they really prepared for like every contingency. So I really have to give props to the Marines, and more specifically Oda, for making this threat actually feel like a threat. Like, I'll be honest with you, I'm sitting here looking at this, and I'm like, first of all, there's no way the Straw Hats are going to be able to win in a straight-up fight. Their goal right now is to leave the island, is to evac, hit the compulsory evacuation device, get out of there as quick as possible. I like that type of shit. It reminds me of like in Whole Cake Island, when the whole goal of the latter half of Whole Cake was not to defeat Big Mom, it was just to get out of her territory, and Oda gave it a struggle. Like, it wasn't easy just to skip out of Big Mom's territory. That was an effort in and of itself, okay? And so here we have all these Marines, all these battleships. Yeah, some have already been sank by the, or sunk, I rather should say, by the Sea Beast, and the Pacifistas attacked some of them before the Marines took control of them, sure. But, like, there's just, I don't really see a way that, like, Luffy and the Straw Hats and the Vegapunks would be able to just, like, all right, let's just fight them all. Let's fight them all the Vice Admirals, all the Marines, all the Batterments, everything they got. Kizaru, bring them on, everybody, all the Pacifistas they control, we got this. There's just no way that's happening, okay? So it really keeps me on my toes. I'm really wondering where this is going to go. So, specifically talking about Saturn, St. J. Garcia Saturn, okay. So in the last chapter, we had the moment where Atlas and Vegapunk, and by extension, we also had Sanji and Frankie tagging along for the ride, arriving down in the fabrication stratum. Atlas gives the order to the Pacifista Mark IIIs, hey, work with us and eradicate every last Marine on the island, okay? And we saw the last panels, we saw the Pacifistas receiving the command, and then we saw Saturn just kind of sitting there, just kind of like, And I think he's making that expression, kind of that solemn expression, because he knows what he has to do next. He came for a contingency. He's like, hopefully, I won't have to get involved here, because he doesn't want everybody to know he's there, because even the presence of a Gorosei on another island, like, that alone is a big deal, is a huge deal. In fact, this might be a first. This might be the first time the Gorosei have left Marie-Joie. Because all throughout the rest of the story, every time they show up, they're always there. During the flashback at Ohara, they were still there. They were having a conversation with Clover over the Den Den Mushi. They didn't leave. Vegapunk went to go meet them at Marie-Joie during their last meeting. They didn't leave. We've never seen them outside. It might be like the first time the world is ever hearing about this. That might be part of the world, like the world-shaking event, and everything like that. I don't think that's the whole thing. It's part of it, maybe. But, like, the idea of a Gorosei leaving Marie-Joie to go somewhere, if Morgans gets wind of that and prints it in the paper, that might be like, this has never happened ever, Okay. So he really doesn't want to make himself known. He really doesn't want to step off the ship onto the island and give the order. He is there for that very rare contingency, but with the last chapter, even despite bringing Cypherpole Zero and Rob Lucci being a loyal, agent, and with Kizaru up there doing his thing, and with all the Vice Admirals taking control, all that is still not good enough. The Vegapunks and the Straw Hats still managed to weasel their way through all of them and managed to give the order. So now it's basically Garcia has to make a decision. He either has to just sit tight and like, all right, they took control of all the Pacifista Mark IIIs. Maybe the Vice Admirals will be able to handle this without me. Maybe they won't. Oh, man, damn it. I didn't want this to... Kizaru, can you just do your job? It might be something like that for Saturn. He's just like, I really don't want to have to do this. This is really not a good idea. Okay, fine, So he's going to make his appearance. So what's going to happen is, I don't think it's going to be immediate. I don't think he's going to step out right away, like the first thing in the next chapter. He's going to step out, okay? So what he's going to do, he's probably going to sit tight and wait for a bit. We have the Pacifista Mark IIIs listening to Atlas, and then they begin to turn on the Marines, and then the Vice Admirals deal with them. Now, the Vice Admirals are tough. especially Doll. She's very tough. So they're going to take out a couple of the Pacifista Mark IIIs, but it might come down to a thing where they're getting surrounded, because there's like 50 of these things. Some of them have already been damaged and taken out, but even if they've been damaged a little bit, they could still move. Like, even the one that, like, Doll kicked in the head, that doesn't mean that, like, it's down for good. It could still get back up and attack, right? These things are really built durable, all right? They're way more durable than the other Pacifistas that we saw at Sabaody. Those were, like, the prototypes. These are Mark III models, okay? So we got those, right? So it might be a thing where Sanji and Frankie are, like, there fighting some random Marines, and it's like, wow, we might actually win this. With the Mark IIIs on our side, I think we can actually do this, right? And there might even be a thing where Vegapunk and Atlas even explain to Sanji and Frankie just how powerful the Mark IIIs are and the kind of technology they utilize and the bubble shielding tech and all that stuff. It's just like, oh yeah, even though these are Vice Admirals, like one or two Mark IIIs should give a Vice Admiral a run for their money. Like, it should be a thing where that's the level of power. And we still have, I would love to get a number of how many functional Mark IIIs are still in operation. Like, next chapter, Atlas pulls out like a little iPad or something and it's just like do. We have 44 units of the Mark IIIs that are still operational. So they took out a few of them, but that might even be a thing. Like, all the Vice Admirals fighting and all the bombardments, and only a couple of them were destroyed. You know what I mean? That's how tough these things are, okay? And there's just the numbers. There's just so many of them, right? So it might be a thing where Sanji and Frankie and Atlas, and they're fighting against the random Marines, and they're fighting back. Maybe Sanji and Frankie clash with a Vice Admiral. That would actually be really cool. We could see some action from them. One of the Vice Admiral Jowls, the chin guy with the steam knuckle. He like goes to punch Frankie, and Frankie like blocks the attack, and then they fight a little bit. Who else was there? We had the Beardsley guy, the big beard dude, so he fights against Sanji. Maybe they just hold them off for a little while, but like Sanji and Frankie are like confident, like, we can do this, we can fight back. I'm actually thinking if there is a reveal with St. J. Garcia Saturn, it's gonna be like the cliffhanger of the next chapter, because that is a big deal. That's not something I think they should open the chapter with. I could see them, like, the chapter feels like we're winning, and then at the very end, St. J. Garcia Saturn steps out and arrives on the shore of Egghead, and everybody just kind of looks at him like, what? Because the only Marines that know he's there are Kizaru and Doberman, and maybe the Vice Admirals might know he's there, but maybe not all of them, you know what I mean? And the regular Marines definitely don't, and the Straw Hats and Vegapunks definitely don't, so they're like, who is this guy? Like, they might not recognize him, and then Vegapunk would know, and Atlas would know, obviously, because they've met him, and they'd be like, that's one of the elders, and it's like, oh, whoa, okay. So, obviously, another reason why, thematically, why St. J. Garcia Saturn is here right now is to kind of showcase what the Gorosei are capable of. We got a teaser of that earlier, with Sabo encountering them in the throne room and everything like that, and Eam, and they can transform, and we saw all that, but we didn't really see what they were capable of. Well, we did. We know that they can take a point-blank fire fist to the face without really a surprise attack, without really taking any damage. So they're definitely capable of fighting. So let me ask you a question about the Gorosei individually. We're not even talking about Eam. We're just talking about the individual Gorosei. How do you want them to be in terms of, like, the way they display their power? What I mean by that is, would you be okay if St. J. Garcia Saturn, he just basically turns into, like, that giant bullfrog thing, and he's just really tough? He's just a really strong person. Maybe he has a mythical zone and he just, like, wrecks everything, and he's just pure destructive power. Or would you want him to be a little bit more like you can't even hit him? He has powers that are well beyond just devil fruits and hockey. It's not a matter of him getting hit and taking little damage. It's the matter of, like, Frankie pulls out, like, radical beam and shoots him, and Garcia just pong, or the laser just, like, skirts around him, like there's some ability where you can't even hit the dude, okay? Something like that. Or the laser goes right through him, like he's made of gloop, or he's made of, like, goo or water or something. Like, just a laser just fires right through him, does 0 damage, doesn't even affect him. It's like one thing, like when you're playing a game, it's like, all right, this person is resistant to fire damage, so he only takes half fire damage. There's that, and then there's completely immune to fire damage. Like, you can hit him all you want with a fire attack, doesn't matter how strong it is, it's not going to even singe his ass. So, like, what level are we dealing with here with the Gorosei? Like, literally untouchable, or just, like, really, really tanky? Like, it would take a lot of radical beams to take Jay Garcia down, but it could be done. Or versus, you could fire 1,000,000 lasers at this guy, they're not even going to affect him kind of god powers. Like, what are we dealing with here is basically the situation, right? And it might be because of those powers that he doesn't like to reveal himself very much, because it's like something beyond mythical zones, beyond hockey. It's next level. It's like Eam is literally the being of like Mother Ocean and has bestowed godly powers and gifts and abilities on all of the elders, and they're the ones that wield we are the avatars of the ocean god. We have their power. I've been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3. Anyway, I'm about to fight Orin, so we'll see how that goes. But anywho, we have that going on with Garcia. Okay, so and it's like, it would be fun to see it displayed through Sanji and Frankie. Sanji and Frankie, I'm sorry, Sanji, are not like the strongest members of the Straw Hats, okay? They're not Luffy or Zoro. I mean, Sanji's up there, he is, and Frankie is definitely strong. So it would be cool to see Frankie and Sanji team up, have them fight against St. J. Garcia Saturn, and see how far they could get to really get a handle on, like, can they even touch this guy? Is it going to be a thing like when the Straw Hats fought against Aokiji at Long Ring Longland, where they all charge him at once and Aokiji just drops them all and freezes them all at the same time? Or is it going to be a thing where, like, Sanji goes Ifrit Jambe and just, like, ultimate attack, boom, nails St. J. Garcia right in the head, and he, like, whoa, and he gets, like, knocked back, and then Frankie shows up behind him and just radical beam and just shoots him right through the chest, and it's like, we did it, we took him down, and he just gets back up and, like, the wounds close, and it's just like, oh man, I'm out of practice. This is why we don't leave the room of authority. It's so noisy down here in the lower realm. Oh my god, it's like, excuse me? It's just like, what? Is it gonna be that, or is it they can't even reach him, or something like that? Yeah, but he's gonna give the order. He might honestly, dude, he might not even fight. It might be a baller move where he gets out, gives the order to the Pacifistas so they listen to him, and he's like, Pacifista Mark IIIs, obey me, destroy all the Vegapunks, and, gives them the orders. And so then he just turns to go back on the ship. And then that's when Frankie and Sanji try to attack him, like Atlas could too. And then it doesn't work. And he doesn't even fight. He just goes back on the boat. He's just like, fighting me is not going to, you're not going to get far. I'm immortal and invincible and invulnerable. You're not going to be able to kill me. So there's no point. And I'm not fighting you because, like, you're so below me. I don't care. I'm not getting my hands dirty for you. I came because in case everything went bad, I have to give this order, and I did that. So I'm not going to bother with you. Right? I love those types of characters. I love the types of characters that, like, reach a moment where it's just like, I am so powerful and I have been alive for so long. Because at this point, I don't really know. I used to say that, like, the Gorosei are not immortal beings. Now I'm not sure because of what we saw with Eam and everything, like, transforming. Like, there could be successive generations where these guys could have been alive. Maybe not as long as Eam, but, like, St. J. Garcia Saturn could have been alive for 300 years. The other members could have been alive for 500 years or 100 years or whatever. They could have been around for a long time. They could shapeshift, maybe, who knows, given their abilities, right? So it could be a thing like that where it's just like, we've been around for so long and I have godly power. I don't even care to fight you. It's not gonna matter. You can't touch me, so what does it matter, right? And so he might just go back on the boat and there's like, wait, what's going on here, right? Now, the other direction of going with this is where St. J. Garcia Saturn dies. That would be a story. That would be headline news that would shock the world. One of the Gorosei, St. J. Garcia Saturn, dies. All right? And then that'll be it. And it could be done by, like, it might be, yeah, he's really tough. He's definitely not a pushover. But he might not have invulnerable god powers, okay? He's a tough cookie to crack, but it can be done, right? And in which case, he dies there either from Sanji and Frankie attacking him, or the other Straw Hats get involved, or, something of that nature happens. Maybe he gets caught in the crossfire of Kizaru versus Luffy. The fight gets down to the bottom of the fabrication sphere, and then Kizaru fires a bunch of lasers, and then Luffy bounces them back or something, and then hits Garcia right in the head, and he goes down. Maybe something like that. He's like, oh no, one of the Gorosei died. It's just like, it was kind of Kizaru's fault, and he's like, oh no, that's not good. So there's that. Let's see here. Okay, you know what? I just remembered, now that I mentioned that, there was a scene when they were traveling to Egghead where Kizaru was kind of making sure that the food that was served to St. J. Garcia was good. Like, he was like a poison tester to make sure it wasn't going to, poison him. So maybe St. J. Garcia is Saturn. Maybe that's not the direction Oda's going. He's not invincible. He can be poisoned. He can be killed. And that's the reason they don't leave. Because if they leave Marijois, the more often the chance is for them to die of a disease or someone to assassinate them or something like that, right? So, yeah, they clearly have powerful forms, but they might not be invulnerable, right? So that could happen, and he could die, and then Morgans is floating around up there, and he's like, big news, front page here, and it's like, oh no, what are we going to do with this? And then that might tick off Eames sufficiently to now get involved directly with the Straw Hats in a way that they did not before, right? That could happen there. So there's that, and then there's the Seraphim. Now, the Seraphim are currently kind of dealt with. They're sealed in the bubbles, so even if St. J. Garcia Saturn takes control of the Seraphim and gives them an order, and he can't just order them to break out of the bubbles and attack. They're already trying to actively break out of the bubbles, and it's not working. So they're kind of dealt with for the moment, unless they bring the other Seraphim like S. Flamingo with them. But from what we understand, they're in different parts of the world dealing with the rebellions. They're putting down those rebellions from the Revolutionary Army. So I don't think those are the other Seraphim are going to get involved, and the current Seraphim are dealt with. And yeah, I think they're going to be sealed up until maybe the Straw Hats release them. It's like, oh, well, we need them to help if they can actually listen to us, but it might be too much of a risk, so they might just keep them bubbled. You know what I mean? But, oh, man, it's really heating up here. We got a break this week, so maybe next week we'll see where it goes. But, yeah, I think we're going to have one chapter where everything looks like it's turning in the way of the Straw Hats, like we got this. Because, like I said, Straw Hats don't know the Gorosei is there. In fact, that is the last thing they would ever consider is the Gorosei being there. That's the last anybody would consider because they never leave Marijois. So, one chapter where it's like, we're doing this, it's our counterattack, everything was looking a little dicey there for a moment, but we really got control of this situation. And then St. J. Garcia shows up and just shatters their hope immediately. So could be something like that. So be on guard, be on alert. Okay, well, anyway, that's the video. Hope you all enjoyed. And now let's get on to some Yellow Jacket facts. Another reason to be in Code Red right now. Go ahead. All right, so today, a little bit of a different kind of Yellow Jacket fact. I found this while looking around for images of Yellow Jackets, and this is a nice little diagram of the various wasp species that resemble Yellow Jackets and sometimes get confused for them, all right? We have the standard Yellow Jacket here on the bottom left, but we also have the mud dauber, the paper wasp, and the bald-faced hornet. So I wanted to talk a little bit about these different species. So let's talk about the bald-faced hornet first. This is a species that's very closely related to Yellow Jackets. In some ways, I look at them like shiny Yellow Jackets, like in Pokemon, like the swapped color palette, kind of like that. Bald-faced hornets are kind of like, a shiny Yellow Jacket. They're actually more wasps than hornets. They're actually not a hornet, they're wasps. It's just what people kind of call them, right? And so these are actually capable of making the largest nests. They have colonies upwards of 400 to 700 members. So pretty big deal there, and they're kind of found in the same general region as a Yellow Jacket, and they kind of do a lot of the same stuff. They actually have a thing where they, so a lot of, species of animal are able to identify their own species and kind of maybe not be super hostile toward them immediately unless they're getting in on their territory. In the case with a lot of bees and stuff, you might not have one colony of honeybee attack another colony of honeybee. They might just be like, we're all bees here, you know what I mean? In the case with the bald-faced hornet, they're able to recognize, hey, you're a member of my colony, you're a member of my nest, you're cool. But when they're out there buzzing around, they run into another bald-faced hornet, same species from another colony, and it's like, hey, stay out of our turf, kind of a thing there, all right? It's like, you're not from my nest, I can tell you that much. It's just like, this is our territory, right? So there's kind of that. The mud daubers are interesting. So they obviously have a much more, their center part there, their abdomen is super skinny, and they fly around there in a lot of the southern regions and the Caribbean and stuff like that. They make their nests, as you would imply from their name, out of mud. So they'll make these pipe-shaped nests out of mud. And the fascinating thing about mud daubers, they're actually responsible for a plane crash that killed upwards of 170 people. No shit. I was surprised about this. Back in 1996, Flight 301 was leaving from the Dominican Republic, and it crashed over the ocean, and 176 people died in this plane crash. And then they didn't recover the wreckage, like all of it, but from what they understood is the problem of what happened was the mud daubers took a bunch of mud and made a nest inside of like one of the vents or one of the pipes, one of the vents or something for the aircraft. I don't know, I'm not an aeronautic engineer, but like, made their nest, which is mud, not paper, not something easily. This is mud gunking up the freaking exhaust vent or something, or a sensor for the plane, messing it up, and then it crashed in the middle of the ocean. So the mud daubers have a very high body count on there. I don't know if it's the only wasp species that's ever responsible for a plane crash, but holy crap, that's a big deal. And then finally, we have the paper wasp. Now, the paper wasp it's a family of wasps. It's not just one specific type of wasp. This one in particular, there's like 1,100 species of paper wasps. And actually, all wasps kind of make their nests out of paper. Not every single one, but the vast, vast majority make their nests out of paper. Even yellow jackets will make their nest out of paper. So their yellow jackets are also considered paper wasps, but kind of the same deal. Like, there's a lot of different species of them, and they're very similar and territorial and protective and everything like that. There's a tremendous amount of paper wasps that out there. There's like, I think, over 1,100 species, and they're the second most diverse out of all wasps. So yeah, a lot of species. Anyway, that was a particularly long one, but I wanted to cover kind of all these general species of yellow jackets. So thanks for watching the video, everybody. This will be Teching, signing out. Remember to check out Spotify and all that if you want to listen to these videos rather than watch them. Those exist as well. Links below. Later, everyone. Signing out.